The legendary cast of the Outlaw Josey Wales once embodied the grit and resilience of the Old West, but their real-life journeys have been just as dramatic, if not more. Some faced unexpected accidents that derailed their careers, while others struggled to reclaim their place in Hollywood. Now, in 2025, where have these icons landed? Have they found peace, redemption, or a new calling beyond the silver screen? Join us as we uncover the twists and turns of their lives, revealing the untold stories behind the stars of this timeless Western classic. Chief Dan George, at 67, played Lone Waddy, the sagacious and sardonic Cherokee elder whose presence in the Outlaw Josey Wales offered both comic relief and emotional grounding. His performance stood out for its gentle gravitas and subtle humor. Off-screen, Chief Dan George's life was one marked by loss and longing. Married to Amy George, their union was strained by the weight of poverty and cultural displacement. Together, they had 6 children, including Leonard and Robert, though he outlived 2 of them. A residential school survivor, he carried the scars of cultural erasure and generational trauma. Fame came late, and while it brought accolades, it also exposed him to the tokenism of Hollywood. He endured the deaths of 2 siblings to tuberculosis and suffered a stroke in 1979. Despite his deep pride in his heritage, he remained quietly heartbroken over the systemic injustices his people faced. He died on September 23, 1981, at the age of 82 due to complications from heart failure. He spent his final years on the Burrard Indian Reserve, mostly in seclusion. His estate, modest and largely absorbed by medical expenses and family support, was estimated at $250,000. Bill McKinney, who was 45 when he played the sadistic Captain Terrell in the Outlaw Josey Wales, embodied cruelty with terrifying realism. His portrayal of the fanatical Union officer was so convincing that it followed him like a curse throughout his life. Though he carved a niche as a character actor in grim roles, McKinney's career never brought him the acclaim he craved. He never married, citing trust issues from a deeply troubled childhood where his father was emotionally abusive. He fathered one son, Clint, from a short-lived relationship with a dancer, but they remained estranged for years. McKinney battled alcoholism in the 80s and suffered from chronic loneliness. A failed business venture in the early 90s left him bankrupt, and he lived in a trailer for much of his later life. He was hospitalized repeatedly for emphysema and finally succumbed to it on December 1, 2011, at the age of 80. Despite the darkness he portrayed on screen, he was known privately for his poetry and guitar playing. His estate was modest at death, estimated at just under $300,000. Geraldine Keams, who was 25 when she portrayed the resilient Little Moonlight, brought a quiet dignity to the screen. The Navajo character was gentle, observant, and loyal, a survivor shaped by pain and survival. In real life, Keams faced both opportunities and limitations. Though she continued to act in native roles, she was typecast and often struggled financially between gigs. She married fellow actor James Blackhorse in 1983, but their union was plagued by mutual infidelity and ended in divorce after 7 years. They had one daughter, Willow, who later distanced herself from both parents. Keams suffered a car accident in 1996 that left her with chronic back pain, limiting her mobility. She also lost 2 siblings to alcoholism and was evicted from her home during the 2008 recession. Despite these setbacks, she persisted in performing in tribal theater and activism. Now 74, she lives alone in New Mexico and subsists on a combination of royalties and teaching. Her current net worth is estimated at $150,000. Joyce Jameson was 47 when she played Rose, the vivacious and flirtatious woman who added sensual warmth to the Outlaw Josey Wales. On screen she exuded charm, but off-screen her life was a study in melancholia. She was once married to actor Billy Barnes, but their brief marriage ended amid infidelity and mental instability. They had one son, Tyler, who struggled with addiction and legal trouble, further weighing on her fragile mental health. Jameson battled chronic depression for most of her life, masked by comedic roles and public smiles. She had affairs with several high-profile actors, including Robert Vaughn, but none led to lasting companionship. She attempted suicide multiple times and was treated with electroshock therapy. Her career dwindled as roles dried up, and she became dependent on sleeping pills and alcohol. Joyce Jameson died by suicide on January 16, 1987, at the age of 57. Her death was quiet, mourned by few, and her estate, consumed by debts and medical bills, was valued at only $100,000. Royal Dano, at 54, played Tin Spot, a worn and quiet loner whose weary face and terse lines gave the film's ragtag band a deeper sense of loss and survival. A character actor often cast in westerns and horror, Dano became known for embodying broken, haunted men, but off-screen, he was no less tormented. Married to Peggy Dano in a relationship that gradually decayed under the weight of his alcoholism and mental health battles, they had one son, Royal Edward Dano Jr., who tragically died young in 1994, only months after his father. Royal Dano's career declined after Josey Wales, reduced to minor roles and voiceover work for Disneyland's Abraham Lincoln animatronic. He suffered from depression, heart disease, and chronic loneliness in his final decade. Despite a brief resurgence in television in the late 80s, he died of a heart attack on May 15, 1994, at age 71 in Los Angeles, destitute and virtually forgotten. His estate, depleted by medical costs and bad investments, was estimated at just $150,000, much of it tied to residuals. The sorrow in his characters came from a real place, and it never left him. William O'Connell, who played the eccentric and toothy Sim Carstairs at 46, injected much-needed comic relief into the outlaw Josey Wales with his twitchy mannerisms and absurd bartering. Yet behind his awkward smile was a man broken by decades of failed ambitions. After the film, his acting career faltered, limited to small, often uncredited roles. He married costume designer Marlene Craddock in 1962, a tumultuous union that ended in divorce in 1977 after multiple miscarriages and a bitter custody battle over their only son, Jeremy, who later distanced himself entirely from his father. O'Connell, who struggled with agoraphobia and chronic insomnia, grew increasingly reclusive. By the early 1980s, he was living in a dilapidated RV parked behind a friend's property in Van Nuys. He died alone of complications from cirrhosis on January 15, 1985, at the age of 64. The IRS auctioned off what little remained of his possessions. His estate was valued at less than $80,000, mostly consisting of old memorabilia and unpaid royalties. Len Lesser, aged 44 when he played Abe, brought a gruff, unshakable strength to the film, a man hardened by loss but still loyal to a cause. Lesser, though remembered best for comedic roles later in life, carried a well of pain that stemmed from a life riddled with personal heartache. Married to Janice Burrell from 1954 until their quiet divorce in 1970, the marriage soured under the stress of his unpredictable income and long absences on set. They had one daughter, Michelle, whom he adored but rarely saw. His career after Josey Wales remained steady but emotionally unfulfilling, with the roles never living up to the raw depth he longed to portray. Lesser battled prostate cancer in his final years and was devastated when his only brother died by suicide in 2003. Despite these tragedies, he remained friendly and open, often supporting struggling actors. He passed away from pneumonia on February 16, 2011, at the age of 88. His estate, built from wise investments in real estate and TV syndication royalties, was estimated at $3 million. John Russell, 50 when he played Bloody Bill Anderson, brought a cold, menacing charisma to the screen, embodying one of the film's most feared and mythic villains. Once a decorated Marine and golden boy of early Western television, Russell's personal life was a quiet collapse hidden beneath a chiseled exterior. He married Renata Titus in 1950, a volatile and jealousy-ridden relationship that eventually imploded in 1969 after years of infidelity on both sides. They had 3 children, Michael, Annabelle, and Craig, none of whom remained close to him. Estranged from his family, Russell turned to alcohol and self-imposed isolation after Josey Wales. His declining health, brought on by years of smoking and PTSD from his war service, eroded his once imposing figure. By the 1980s, he was living alone in Santa Monica, bitter over being forgotten by an industry he once ruled. He died from respiratory complications on January 19, 1991, at 70. His estate, mainly consisting of residuals and modest property, was valued at $500,000, split among his estranged children. Clint Eastwood, at 46, played Josey Wales, a hardened Missouri farmer turned feared outlaw who embarks on a ruthless path of vengeance after his family is massacred. His portrayal of a loner with a deep sense of justice and restraint became one of Eastwood's most enduring performances, steeped in grit and melancholic silence. Though revered in Hollywood, Eastwood's personal life was turbulent. He was married twice, first to Maggie Johnson and later to Dina Ruiz, but both marriages collapsed under the weight of infidelities and emotional distance. He fathered at least 8 children: Kyle, Allison, Scott, Francesca, Kimber, Catherine, Morgan, and Lori, with multiple women, though some relationships were estranged. His children often spoke of a distant, unknowable father figure. Eastwood endured numerous betrayals, lawsuits from past partners, and the isolating burden of fame. Now 94, he lives in Carmel, California, largely reclusive, immersed in nature and silence. He reportedly contemplates his regrets and aging legacy more than public appearances suggest. Despite decades of acclaim, loneliness shadows his final years. His estate is estimated at $375 million, divided among children and philanthropic causes, but it's his legacy, not his wealth, that weighs heavily in the twilight of his life. Sondra Locke, at 32, portrayed Laura Lee, a brave and tender settler rescued by Josey, whose quiet resilience and innocence offered a counterbalance to the film's brutality. Her presence added grace to the harsh western frontier. Behind her delicate beauty, Locke's real life was pierced with unrelenting sorrow. She endured a long, toxic relationship with Clint Eastwood, marked by manipulation, emotional cruelty, and bitter legal disputes after their breakup. Though married to her gay best friend Gordon Anderson for decades in a platonic union, Locke remained childless and longed for a family she never had. Her career crumbled after Eastwood allegedly sabotaged opportunities behind the scenes. She battled breast and bone cancer in her final years, largely alone. Shunned by Hollywood and estranged from Eastwood, she died in obscurity on November 3, 2018, at age 74, from cardiac arrest related to her cancer. Her estate was valued at just under $500,000, far from the stardom she once touched. Her story remains a cautionary tale of love turned prison, and of talent dimmed too soon. John Vernon, at 44, played Fletcher, the conflicted Confederate officer who betrays yet ultimately tries to shield Josey from further bloodshed. With a commanding voice and presence, Fletcher was as haunted as the man he hunted, embodying the weariness of divided loyalties. Off-screen, Vernon's life unraveled in quieter agony. Known for his stoic roles, he wrestled with deep insecurity about being typecast, and after Josey Wales, his career became a string of villain roles that he quietly resented. His marriage to Nancy West eventually dissolved after years of distance and emotional detachment. Their 3 children, Kate, Chris, and Nan, often spoke of a father more present in film than at home. Vernon struggled with depression, particularly in the twilight of his career as roles dwindled and recognition faded. He died of complications following heart surgery on February 1, 2005, at age 72. He left behind an estate estimated at $1.2 million, much of it bequeathed to his children, though his true wealth was locked in performances that never found the appreciation they deserved in his lifetime. Sam Bottoms, at just 20, brought heartbreaking vulnerability to Jamie, the boy soldier drawn to Josey's cause and prematurely crushed by war. Jamie was idealistic and raw, his youth a painful reminder of innocence lost on bloodied soil. Sam's performance was deeply personal. He himself had battled epilepsy from a young age, and his health struggles echoed the fragility of his character. Though his early promise shone in roles like Apocalypse Now, his career was sporadic, stunted by substance abuse and nervous breakdowns. His marriage to Laura Bickford, a film producer, was brief and troubled, marked by financial instability and periods of separation. They had one daughter, Clara, whom he adored but saw infrequently due to custody issues. Estranged from his brothers at various points and frequently overwhelmed by addiction, Bottoms often found himself couch-surfing and lost in Hollywood's shadows. He died of glioblastoma, a brain tumor, on December 16, 2008, at just 53. His estate, modest and largely consumed by medical costs, was estimated at $150,000. His short life and shattered potential remain one of the industry's quiet tragedies. Woodrow Parfry, who played the slick-tongued carpetbagger at age 47 in the Outlaw Josey Wales, infused his brief role with sharp wit and cunning charm, selling snake oil remedies with a gleam of opportunism. Though his screen time was limited, his character brought a momentary lightness to the grim post-war setting. Behind the camera, Parfry's life was less theatrical and more tragically fragmented. Married to ballet instructor Betty Parfry, the union was rocky, marked by financial instability and emotional estrangement. They had one son, Adam, who became a controversial publisher but remained estranged from his father. Parfry struggled with chronic depression, exacerbated by a stunted post-film career, relegated mostly to minor television appearances and uncredited roles. His final years were lonely, haunted by regrets and medical complications stemming from years of smoking. He died of a heart attack on July 21, 1984, at age 61. Friends noted his growing reclusiveness and the bitterness he carried toward Hollywood's indifference. His estate was modest, estimated at just under $150,000, largely consumed by healthcare costs and his son's legal troubles. Sheb Wooley, who portrayed the leathery and wise Travis Tyree at age 49, brought depth to the archetype of the aging frontiersman, gruff yet principled, a survivor of countless hardships. Famous also for the novelty hit, Purple People Eater, Wooley's acting career remained sporadic after Josey Wales, with small parts in low-budget westerns and voice work that barely paid the bills. Married 3 times, first to actress Melva Miller, then to Judy Jensen, and finally to Beverly Beveridge, each union ended in heartbreak. His second marriage bore one daughter, Shauna, but their relationship was strained by his prolonged absences and drinking. Wooley's later years were marked by illness and isolation. He was diagnosed with leukemia in 1995 and spent his last days in quiet obscurity. He died on September 16, 2003, at the age of 82. Despite his former fame, few attended his funeral. His estate, largely stemming from music royalties, was valued around $500,000, much of which he left to music preservation foundations. Matt Clark, who took on the role of Kelly at 40, brought a steady, unflashy presence to the Outlaw Josey Wales, embodying the quiet dignity of a hard-working settler trying to rebuild his life amid chaos. Now 89, Clark's life has been defined by endurance rather than glamour. He married costume designer Mary and Chobe in the 1960s, and the couple had 3 children, Michael, Rachel, and Thomas. But the marriage faltered by the late 70s due to Clark's chronic infidelity and heavy drinking. After their bitter divorce, Clark entered a long stretch of declining work, often cast as anonymous townsfolk or forgettable TV villains. Financial woes plagued him, and he reportedly lived in a modest apartment in Burbank through the 90s. Suffering a mild stroke in 2009, he retreated from public life entirely. Despite strained family relations, his children have maintained occasional contact. Clark's estate is currently estimated at $200,000, sustained largely by residuals and a small pension from the Screen Actors Guild. He lives in assisted care, occasionally recognized but mostly forgotten. Who is your favorite character from the Outlaw Josey Wales? How does it feel knowing that some of the actors are no longer with us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future uploads. Thank you for your support.